Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to English, Lesson 7, Grade 9. We're going to look at stems or root words, prefixes and suffixes. And I'm Mrs. Swart, and I'll be taking you through today's lesson. Now, I'm going to try and keep it as uncomplicated as possible. So let's have a look first of all. When we speak of a stem or root word, we just check that there we go. The root and the stem word, we also think of it as the base word, and it refers to a word to which we are going to add a prefix or a suffix, or we can add both. I've already said they're also known as root words or base words, and you'll see the tree there showing the root is the strongest part of the tree. Without the root, it cannot stand. So that is why it's so important. Now, if we add the prefix re to a word like pay, then we're going to get repay. Now, what that tells us is that the word pay is our root word or our base word. Now, something interesting to remember why there's a slight difference between root and stem words. A stem word is supposed to always remain common within all inflected forms. So if you look at a word like wait, if you add a to a wait or waiting, then we see that these words all have one word in common. Wait stays as it is without any changes to it. So that's more or less what it's about, although most of us grew up with a stem root is a root word. It's just we grew up that it's the same thing, but there's a slight difference. But don't worry about knowing exactly what the difference is. As long as you know it's the base, it's what the words are built on. Now, a prefix, before, so we add something in front of it. Suffix, we add something at the end. You take a word like rely. Now, if you add a suffix, you can say it's reliable. If you put un in front of it or un in front of it, then you're changing it to an antonym and it becomes unreliable, like the little car in the picture. So remember that it can affect the meaning of what we are saying. So let's have a look quickly with prefixes. A prefix we add to the beginning of the word. And what's interesting about this, and you actually know a lot, you could create new words, you could create antonyms, and antonyms are, of course, you know that. Antonyms are words opposite in meaning. So by adding a prefix, something at the beginning, you could change the meaning. And you have to be very careful that you make sure you know which prefixes to use, because you could make a total hash of it if you use the wrong prefix. So you can't say if someone is disqualified from a race, you can't say they're unqualified from the race, because to be unqualified is when someone isn't trained or ready to do something. Like maybe you'd say, oh, it's an unqualified teacher, meaning that the teacher hasn't finished studying yet, then it's a student teacher. But disqualified means you've been kicked out of the race. So be very careful which ones you use, that you don't get yourself in there and not over this, or you use the wrong words and then you actually, it's almost like a malapropism. You sound like a fool instead of sounding as if you know something. Some of our most common prefixes are displayed as follows. And just to give you an idea, I want to show you the book. I'm sure you can all see it. This is our English, I can almost say our Bible, the English handbook and study guide that we use. And on page 44, you'll find there that they show you the prefix, the meaning, and the use. So anti would mean it's against something, could be antibacterial, anti-clockwise. So anti means against or not clockwise, but in the opposite direction. Auto is self, automotive. Think of something like autobiography. Mono, one. Monotonous, monologue, a monologue where one person speaks. Multi, means many, and it's multi-purpose, multitask. Those are the sorts of things that you would have to look at and see. Make sure that you use them correctly. Now, with some of these, you'll have to go and study them to make sure that you spell correctly. We'll look at spelling at some stage, just not today, but it's another opportunity. And what we'll do is you'll be able to see, when do I use a hyphen to break the word, and when do I just write it as one word, as our examples are here. And just to remind you that at the end of this lesson, there's going to be a quiz that you have to do to test yourself, and it's very simple. It's based on the slides. Suffixes, these are word endings. In other words, we've added to the end of the word. It's connected to the words, it modifies the words, it often changes the parts of speech. For instance, can change a verb to an abstract noun. So it can go from respond to responsible. So those are sorts of things you need to have a look at. Make sure you understand what the suffix does, what the prefix does. And it's easy to know the difference between the two if you can't remember what the suffix does, but you remember the prefix. Pre means before. Suffix able or IBLE, able to be, rely, becomes reliable. Hood means a state of. Neighbor becomes neighborhood, a state of neighbors. The isms, they form abstract nouns. Now, I want you to remember a lot of these are actually neologisms, because what happens is you create this new word using the ism. Realism. And every now and then the isms come back and bite us, because when something happens or something's trending, then they suddenly put the ism at the end to show traditionalism, racism. Those are the sort of isms that show these specific words to you. Mint. It forms nouns from verbs. You take govern, becomes government, and commit becomes commitment. Now what I want you to do, remember, practice makes perfect. You're going to click on the link below to complete the exercise and identify the roots or stems, prefixes, and suffixes. Please remember to have a look at your English handbook and study guide if you want to know more about these on page 44. And there you have your link to the quiz for today. And on the next page, you are going to find you have your QR code. Good luck with this quiz today. I wish you the very best, and thank you so much for attending today and to being part of this lesson.